Welcome back. It's Friday. Let's go. We love Friday. We love Fridays around here. Yeah, first Friday stream. We're gonna have a good time. I hope. Really hope. All you can do is hope sometimes. Yeah, Friday stream should be good. Probably going to keep it a little shorter than usual. Not go the full hour and a half. Probably just an hour, but we'll see how we feel. See how we do. Keep it a little more flexible. Well, the stream itself might not be so good tonight. I'm losing frames a lot. Awesome. Very epic. Very epic, very cool. So it might be might be one of those just come catch the replay types of videos. Yeah, I need to actually, you know, buy an Ethernet cable and run it all the way out here. I need to just bite the bullet and, you know, spend all You can't hear me. Think it's on your end. Might be, might not be. Well, if you can't hear anything, then we have an issue. Let's see. Might be the stream dropping frames. Hold on. Give me a minute. I'm sorry. Well, I pulled the stream up on my phone and I can hear it, so it might be on your end. I've forgotten how to type. Yeah, that little triangle thing is supposed to be a question mark. Yeah, I need to get one of them them old Ethernet cables and run it out here so I can have better internet. Cuz I think that'll be a big part of fixing the issues I have, but I just need to actually do it. I think we have some cloud coverage, so that might be annihilating my internet. Would be funny if that is the problem. Cloud coverage, and now you can't do anything. But it seems to be stabilizing. Yeah, we'll get into it in a minute. I've been depressed recently. I bought ducks, and they got eaten by bobcats. 2 Muscovies. Bought 2 Muscovy ducks. I wanted to raise some meat ducks. And they, you know, they were a meal, but not for me. For a bobcat, and I want that bobcat. I want its skin on my floor. I don't like bobcats anymore. I used to think they were cute, but now I realize what evil creatures they are. What kind of evil being? A being with hate in its heart, killing my poor ducks. My ducks didn't do anything wrong. I was just going to eat their children. But I will. Someday the pain will stop, and I will no longer feel what I feel towards my precious little ducks. They weren't little, they were huge. They made a good meal for a bobcat, and that bobcat will make a very nice rug eventually. But you know what? What else we got going on? It's Friday. We ain't got to get into reading just yet. My ducks keep dying. Oh yeah, a terrible thing happened to me not long ago. I turned 25 years old. I'm now officially an old man. As the kids would say, I'm now Unk. UNC for the uninitiated. It might just be over. 25 is the new 75. I basically only have a few more years left, so but we will make the most of them. We will make the most of these 3 years. The 3 short years that I have left. We will make the most of them. But anyway, so we talked a little bit about the last chapter, the Clash of Cultures. Chapter before, we were finishing up the barbarians, talking about them, the barbarian invasions. Specifically, the Vandals, the Ostrogoths, I believe, the Huns. Then we got into chapter 3, where good old Moss is talking a little bit about the, I say too much. He is talking about the barbarians who are part of the Roman Empire. Specifically, a few barbarians who gained prominence, such as Stilicho. Talks a bit about Stilicho. Was a barbarian who became a Roman general. He mentions Aetius, Ricimer, all of these different all these different Germanic barbarians who rise to prominence in the Roman Empire as Romans, because they're Germanic Romans essentially. They aren't considered Romans by the Romans, but they integrate. They integrate themselves into the Roman culture. They do not seek to destroy it. They seek to become a part of it. But in doing so, they preserve it. And that's a big part of what Henri Pirenne, he is an author I've read. I read one of his books. I have another book by him that I haven't read yet that I really want to. In fact, it might be the next book we read. That one is about the towns and villages of the Roman Empire. Definitely more of an economic deep dive into the Roman Empire. It might be interesting. That might be the next book we read. It's either going to be that or En Route by Huysmans. Huysmans, I think, is how you actually pronounce it. But I don't know. I don't speak French, unfortunately. I am very bad at pronouncing it. But that is kind of where we left off. I need to stop saying The Vandals attack Italy. Rome herself is taken and plundered. The semblance of Roman authority fades out in Gaul and Spain. Odoacer is a German in Italy. He leads the German Federati in Italy. He sets aside the boy emperor Romulus Augustulus, created by his predecessor. Romulus Augustulus whom... Yeah, let me see if I can't find... Yeah, Romulus Augustulus is considered... Moss says that he is not a real emperor, he was a usurper. Moss says the real emperor died. The real emperor, I didn't write down who the real emperor was, but he was in exile, essentially somewhere else. He dies in 480, and Zeno, who's the emperor of Constantinople, the eastern half of the empire, basically reconnects the two halves of the empire and becomes the sole emperor of the full Roman Empire. All right, and now we will get into it. You see, I have figured out how to create annotations. Oh, I figured it out. I spent so long criticizing this PDF reader for not being able to highlight things, and all I had to do was right-click. Woe is me. Oh. You saw nothing. All right. The history of the eastern half of the empire runs curiously parallel to that of the west. The crisis appears even more serious, but they are successively surmounted. Let us trace the contrast. In the year 400, German influence at Constantinople reached its climax. Rufinus, the Praetorian prefect, and Eutropius, the eunuch chamberlain, had been put out of the way. The Roman party, though supported by the Empress Eudoxia, was helpless. Gaius, the barbarian Magister Militum, was supreme. His troops were quartered in the capital, and the hopes of Stilicho, pursuing a similar and concerted policy in the west, might well be raised. But thunder was in the air. The Gothic troops were insolent, and more odious still, they were Arian heretics. One summer evening, the storm broke. A brawl developed, spreading rapidly through the city. The gates were shut, the soldiers hunted down and massacred by the populace, or burnt alive in the church where they had taken refuge. On that night, German power was broken forever. A few years later, the Visigoth menace, which since Adrianople had hung like a cloud over the Balkans, moved westward when Alaric turned his steps towards Italy. Alaric is someone I need to really do a deep dive into, because he's a very fascinating figure. I know he's one of these German barbarians who's the king of the Visigoths. The big king of the Visigoths. He never really becomes Roman, I don't think. But I don't know enough about him to really talk authoritatively on him. But he is someone who, he's a very fascinating historical figure who I really need to look into. Let's see, there was something I wanted to talk about here. Yeah, so the Gothic troops, the kicking out of the massacre of the Germans, obviously a very long-standing effect on the Eastern Roman Empire as a whole. Because the empire on the eastern side, the Byzantine, never adopts any kind of Germanic customs. They stay Greek. They stay Greek, and that, I believe, has a very large effect on who they are as a people. They're more, they become more Greek than they are Catholic in some degrees. And so they're Catholic, but they're also, there's this mix of paganism in with specifically the leading body. There's a very good book called, oh my goodness, I'm blanking on the name of it. Russia and the Universal Church. It's an old book from the 1890s, I believe, written by a Russian. He used to be Russian Orthodox. He became Catholic. And he writes about, the introduction to that book is all about kind of the ancient history, a lot of the prehistory of the schism, the official schism in the 1000s. But he talks about how essentially the Byzantines were religiously Catholic, but the religion stayed in the church, and they were socially pagan everywhere else. As soon as you exited church, you were no longer Catholic. You were just a pagan. And you could see that a lot in the concept of Caesaropapism, which the Byzantines definitely subscribe to. A lot of these heresies that start in the East, they almost all start in the East, but they originate with the emperors. The clergy at the time is more loyal to the emperor because the emperor gives them power than they are to Rome. And so they fall into heresies. These emperors think, oh, I know better. And so they get their bishops to promulgate heresy. And so they have councils, and then they end up having to get the Pope in. And they get the Pope in, the Pope says, no, this is how it needs to be. This is what the church believes. This is the doctrine. And the Byzantines are all like, oh, yeah, that's great. We love that. Thank you. You can go back to Rome now. We have it all figured out. We don't need the Pope anymore. We don't need the Pope. We have the Emperor now. We figured it all out. And it's all because they, I think this is probably a large part of it. They rebel against the Gothic troops. Obviously, the Gothic troops weren't exactly good people there. Yeah, they were insolent and more odious. They were Arians, so they are heretics. Which the history of that is interesting. I don't know specifically how, but the Visigoths and the Ostrogoths become Arians, and they bring that with them. And obviously, there's nothing in their circumstance. They're technically Arian heretics, but how are they supposed to know? So they're a lot less. They're obviously much less culpable for a heresy, if they're culpable at all for that. How are they supposed to know that it's technically a heresy? I forget where I was going with that. But yeah, they're Arian heretics. They come in and they're not. They come in after they defeat the Eastern Empire and kill their emperor. So they're not exactly very welcome in the East. So it makes sense that eventually a rebellion would happen against them. But you don't see that type of rebellion really in the West. Obviously, there's fighting. There's fighting against the Goths. Stilicho does fighting. He's a German, and he fights against the Goths. But not anything like this, where the Romans are massacring barbarians in the streets, murdering Germans, burning down churches with Germans still inside. You don't, as far as I know, there isn't that in the West. The West kind of takes the Germans. The West does what the church kind of always does, is it takes them and it makes them Catholic. It takes what's good about their cultures and elevates it. And because of that, the Germans become part of the land. The Franks are a Germanic people. They become once Clovis is crowned king, once he's baptized, the Franks become the first Christian nation, France. But it's not just them. The Visigoths become Catholic. They settle in Spain. The Ostrogoths in Italy, and eventually the Lombards settle in Italy, and they all become Catholic. The only ones who really don't are the Saxons. And the Saxons, they aren't forced to become Catholic. I know every modern historian loves to say, oh, but Charlemagne murdered all of these poor Saxons, and those he didn't murder, he forced to become Catholic. It's like, okay, you don't know what you're talking about. The Saxons in Germany they're raiders. They're barbarians. They're raiders. They're raiding. They're going into France, into the Frankish territory, killing, pillaging, all of the stuff that raiders do, and they do that for centuries. And so Charlemagne says enough is enough, and he goes in and he wipes the floor with them, and he tells them, hey, look, if y'all become Catholic, I might have mercy on you. And the ones who don't, he says, okay, well, I'm just going to off with their heads. It's totally justified, in my opinion. But everyone likes to think that the Geneva Convention applies to ancient history, when it really doesn't. It's like, yeah, Charlemagne chopped off the heads of 450 Saxons. They had it coming. They kind of deserved it. Charlemagne's my goat. He didn't do anything wrong. Anyway. Yeah, don't kill Germans. Germans are your friends. Germans are your friends, and they always will be. Unless they're Lutherans. Then they probably aren't your friends. But, anyway. back to it. Arcadius and Honorius were succeeded by two equally incapable princes, Theodosius II and Valentinian III. Under the regiment of women, Ayo. Under the regiment of women, the Eastern Court joined in the doctrinal contest between Constantinople and Alexandria, a battle big with political consequences. What he's talking about here, let me pull up my notes on this, is the downfall of Alexandria as a seat of power. Specifically a seat of power in the church. It was essentially a contest between Constantinople became a patriarch, a seat of a patriarch, whereas Alexandria was kind of the first. It was the biggest. It was the most important after Rome. But Constantinople is like, oh, we're the new Rome. We should be the next most important person after the Pope. And so he talks about this in the first chapter, the end of the first chapter. He talks about the downfall of Alexandria, where you have the Bishop of Alexandria works against St. John Chrysostom with the Empress Eudoxia. The second phase is the Council of Ephesus. Cyril, the Bishop of Alexandria, excommunicates Nestorius with the Nestorian heresy. The second phase, or the third phase, sorry, is the Second Council of Ephesus. The Bishop of Alexandria deposes the Bishop of Constantinople and restores the Eutyches, who was more loyal to the Bishop of Alexandria than Constantinople. But the fourth phase is in Constantinople's favor. The Emperor Theodosius II dies. His sister overthrows Chrysophius and causes Marcian to be elected emperor, and the Council of Chalcedon is summoned. Eutyches, the person from the third phase, who the Bishop of Alexandria gets elected, is condemned. He's exiled. Dioscorus. I butchered that name. He is banished from Alexandria, and the domination is the domination of Alexandria is wrested from Alexandria. Constantinople becomes the second seat of power. Rome is obviously the first. That's where the Pope is. The Bishop of Rome is the authority in the church. And even Constantinople didn't go against that until didn't really go against it until the schism. They always had to reluctantly acknowledge the Pope, and it wasn't until they officially broke away that changed. Oh. Keep pressing a button. It's a button on my mouse that allows me to tab out, and I keep accidentally pressing it. All right. Towards the close of the reign, the Huns pressed even more heavily on the east than on the west. Its provinces were devastated, its citizens crushed under ruinous taxation to provide subsidies. Once more, the peril passed westwards and vanished at the death of Attila. The end of the Theodosian line brought more capable emperors on the scene, but in the west it was too late. A Majorian could do nothing against a Ricimer. In the east, this dangerous power of the Magistri Militum encountered several checks. The supreme command of a Stilicho or Aetius over all military resources, field army, and frontier forces alike was never permitted at Constantinople. The threat of Vandal attacks in her rear increased Italy's dependence on her armies. Constantinople was not menaced so nearly, and when the German danger revived, effective counterforces were discovered by Leo and his successors. Another reason he doesn't mention, Constantinople has a navy, a very large navy. The Vandals can't get to Constantinople without boats. Because if we pull up our map from 450, this is where the Vandals are operating out of. They're operating out of North Africa and Sicily. Constantinople has, at this point, the most efficient and the largest shipbuilding facilities in the world. Most likely in the world. I don't know about China. I don't care about China, so I don't research their shipyards. But Constantinople is the powerhouse of the sea at this point. And so their navies are all over. And the Navy guarantees that they are not attacked by the Vandals from here. The reason Rome is having to watch its back against them is because Rome doesn't have a navy at this point, really. The Western Empire, it's whatever navy it has is nothing. It can't do anything against the attacks of the Vandals. Because it has to, this is the coastline it has to protect. It's an insane coastline. It's easier for Constantinople to protect this coastline. Because you can protect all of this by protecting this. You really only have to worry about this. And you have to worry about this, but even then, what's in the Judea that the Vandals are going to want? Obviously, Alexandria is a target. These Nile tributaries, these Nile cities are going to be targets. Crete and Cyprus are going to be easier targets. But if you want to protect all of this, there's not nearly as much area you have to cover. With this, there's, you have, plus the Vandals have Sicily at this point. They have almost full access to all of this coastline. And Rome just doesn't have the navy to stop them. Because even with Portus, the biggest shipyard, Ravenna is the seat of power. That's where really all the ships are. And it's in the Adriatic. It's on the wrong side of the sea. The Adriatic is safe because, I mean, you have this choke point. This is a very defensible choke point. Choke points are real. Very important strategically, obviously. I don't need to tell anybody that. But this is very easy to defend. This is not. That's another disadvantage the Western Mediterranean has over the Eastern. Plus, you can kind of defend. You can kind of patrol from here to here and here to here. That's a little harder. But I guess that might be something you can do to prevent it. Basically, Constantinople is just in a much better position defensively from the sea than Rome in the west. And I've mentioned it before, but once the Muslims take over, it's the same issue where you have Muslim corsairs who are able to just attack all of these areas with impunity. But Constantinople isn't nearly as affected. I keep pressing this button. Even after the Muslims take over all of this area, the Arabs take over all of this, all of North Africa, Constantinople herself it's attacked several times from the sea, but it's pretty easily defended. And the Muslims never really are able to get anywhere. They're much more successful on the land when they take Anatolia. And eventually they're able to build a navy, and they kind of get lucky at the Siege of Constantinople. When they take Constantinople, they actually kind of take it from this side, I think. I believe. I'm not too familiar with the Siege of Constantinople. The final siege. But yeah. Anyway. The usual ambition of the barbarian Magister Militum was to marry into the imperial house. This had been achieved by Aspar, the powerful Alan general, who on the death of the Emperor Marcian had contrived to elevate Leo, his creature. That's funny. His creature. So, who had contrived to elevate Leo, his creature, to the throne in 457, and had forced him, after long temporizing, to give his daughter in marriage to Aspar's son, who might now expect to become the next emperor. But Leo had other plans. Strong detachments of Isaurians, a fierce mountain race from one of the provinces of Asia Minor, were summoned to the capital, and their leader, Terrasicodisa, interesting name, the original name of Zeno, the future emperor, became a rival Magister Militum and was married to another daughter of Leo. A new bodyguard was created, consisting largely of Isaurians. The machinery for a coup d'etat was now installed, but Leo hesitated to use it. And meanwhile, Aspar's influence grew, while the state, weakened by the costly failure of the naval expedition against the Vandals in 468, could offer no resistance. This naval expedition was one of the last times that the Eastern and Roman Empire, was the last. My notes on it are the last great united action of the two halves of the empire. It was a naval expedition against Gaiseric, the Vandal conqueror of North Africa, and it ended in disaster. That's all I have about that. At last the moment came. Aspar was treacherously murdered at a banquet, and his party was broken up, an attack on the palace being frustrated by the new guards, 471. The Gothic tribes, however, on whom Aspar had depended, were still at large in Thrace, and under their leader Theoderic Strabo, continually menaced the safety of the capital. The Isaurians were unpopular, and when the court party, making use of Theoderic's troops, set up a rival candidate, Zeno, who had now become emperor, had to flee back to his native Isauria. But here too a remedy was at hand. Theoderic the Amal, who was to become Theoderic the Great, king of the Ostrogoths in Macedonia, was ready to compete with his namesake for the titles and subsidies of Constantinople. By his aid, Zeno returned to power by playing off the two chieftains against each other. By playing off the two chieftains against each other, the ascendancy of either was prevented, and soon after the death of Theoderic Strabo, Zeno contrived to dispatch Theoderic the Amal to the conquest of Italy. The German danger was gone, others remained. Isauria was a focus of rebellion. Bulgarian nomads. Bulgaria mentioned? Let's go. Bulgaria. I gotta. Where's the Bulgarian flag? I gotta send a Bulgarian flag. Not even Bulgarian. I just like Bulgaria. I don't. I'm an Albanian guy myself. YouTube doesn't have the Bulgarian flag as part of its emotes? Cringe. Cringe. All my Bulgarians, truly the most oppressed race. Truly the most oppressed of the Balkans. F in the chat for my Bulgarian friends. I don't have any Bulgarian friends. Bulgarian nomads had appeared on the lower Danube. Nationalism was growing in Armenia, Syria, and Egypt. Arabs raided the eastern frontier, Blemies the south. Vandal pirates held up the Mediterranean traffic, but these were minor difficulties. Persia, occupied with Hun invasions, was no longer troublesome. Barbarian influences with the empire had been kept under. At the close of the century, the Roman Empire was still in being. Ooh, Clovis. My guy. Not many years passed before the Federate settlements in Gaul sought to extend their boundaries. The Visigoths in Aquitaine, whose attempts on the precious Riviera coast were frustrated by Majorian, had turned upon Spain, and by 476 had occupied the whole country, with the exception of Galicia, where the Zouaves still held out against them. Hold on, let me find that map. No, that's not the one. Nope, that's not the one either. Too many maps. Ah, here it is. This is a good map. It's a little blurry, but yeah. Suevic Kingdom. This is Galicia, I assume, because that's where the Sueves are. Vasconia. Yeah. Frankish Kingdom. Notice it's not really in France. It's Belgium and the Netherlands and part of Germany at this point. Because this is about France. Yeah, it's more Belgium and the Netherlands. Like I said, pretty blurry map. About the same time, a strong attack was launched upon Provence. Italy could send no help, and Eurich's Visigoth dominion, now at its full extent, reached from the Straits of Gibraltar to the estuary of the Loire, and from the Atlantic to the Alps. Meanwhile, the Burgundians in Savoy had captured Lyon, and the whole basin of the Rhone from Geneva to the neighborhood of Avignon was in their hands. Hitherto, the Salian Franks had apparently carried out their duties as federati. The representative of Rome in northern Gaul was a curious figure, characteristic of the changing times. Aegidius had been under Majorian a commander of Roman troops in Gaul. Cut off from Italy by the solid block of Visigoth and Burgundian territory, he became practically an independent ruler, and his son Syagrius succeeded him in this anomalous position. His capital was Soissons. The barbarians knew him as the Rex Romanorum, a phrase meaningless to Roman ears. Childeric, a chief of the Salian Franks, had helped the Roman forces on the Loire in repelling Saxon raiders and the northward thrusts of the Visigoths. He saw clearly the advantage of keeping northern Gaul free for his own advance. Meanwhile, the Ripuarian Franks, from their centers at Cologne and Mayence, were spreading to the right and the left of the Rhine. In 482, Childeric died and was succeeded by his 16-year-old son, Clovis. I had a duck named Clovis. He was killed by an evil bobcat. Actually, I think he was killed by coyotes, but either way, they did my boy Clovis wrong. I miss him. I miss my duck. Anyway, the character of this strange genius has suffered from the sagas of his contemporary admirers. They worshipped a hero made in their own image, and so the brutality, cunning, and treachery of the Franks have been expressed in their highest common measure in the legendary figure of Clovis. The picture was probably more accurate than the Catholic presentation of him as pious defender of the faith, waging righteous war upon heretics and heathen. Yeah, I don't know enough about it, but I probably disagree with him here. I don't know. I trust very biased Catholic historians more than I trust him. In this regard, Gregory of Tours speaks highly of him, I believe. I've never read Gregory of Tours, but I'm sure he does. At the very least, whoever wrote the not the Chronicle of Fredegar, the Historiae History of the Franks. It's an old book from the 800s, written about the Franks, the Merovingian kings and the Carolingians. He speaks well of Clovis, and I trust him more. Let's see, but neither does him justice. His full stature can be seen only in his achievements, which in less than 30 years transformed the face of Gaul. Federal obligations had ceased to have any force, and Syagrius was the first object of attack. Routed near Soissons, he fled to the Visigoths, but was surrendered by them under threats and put to death by Clovis. All France north of the Loire, except Brittany, whose Celtic tribes, joined by Romano-British refugees, remained independent, fell speedily into Frankish hands. Meantime, by murder, conquest, or stratagem, Clovis had gained supremacy over the rest of the Salians, and by the same means finally added the Ripuarian Franks to his empire, and after heavy fighting hurled back the Alamans beyond the Rhine. Before the completion of this work, a momentous event had taken place, the baptism of Clovis into the Catholic Church. The significance of this will be noticed later on. Its immediate effects were to turn every Catholic priest in Visigothic or Burgundian territory into an agent working for the victory of Clovis, to gain him the support of the Roman population in Gaul, and to make him a desirable ally from the Byzantine point of view against the Arian rulers of the West. The way he says that, turned into an agent working for the victory of Clovis. It's like, oh, all of these Catholics want the Catholic monarch to win. They want they want the Catholic monarch to spread Catholicism. How terrible. The Catholics in Gaul want a Catholic monarch to build a Catholic kingdom. These agents, and they're agents working for his victory. I don't know, that might not be his intended reading of that, but that's what I'm getting out of it. I will give Moss the benefit of the doubt. He's British, he doesn't know any better. Helped by these advantages and by the weakness of Uric's successor, Alaric II, he attacked the Visigoths, and after several unsuccessful campaigns, finally overthrew them at the Great Battle of Vougelet near Poitiers. Alaric was killed, and his Gallic dominions fell to the conqueror. Except the Riviera coastline, which timely action on the part of the Ostrogoths had secured for Italy. The Visigoths were henceforth confined to Spain. Burgundy was the final victim, but its conquest was not completed till 20 years after the death of Clovis in 511. Many devices were employed. Open warfare alternated with marriage alliances, support of factions, treachery, assassination. Burgundy put up a gallant defense, succumbing only to superior forces in 532. Let's see how long this next paragraph is. This next section is. Oh, that's not. Yeah. We'll finish. We'll read through this next section, and at the very least, read through this next section. Let's see. No, I don't have any maps of the Clovis's conquests. I don't have any maps of that. Unfortunate. I should look into that. All right. The union of two cultures is a biological process, and the result is no more capable of exact analysis than the character of a man can be explained on Mendelian principles. Okay, I trust you. In the earlier stages, however, a distinct duality can be observed. Most of these kingdoms fell long before it had been resolved, and even in the Frankish realm, full unity was not achieved until the days of Charlemagne. Duality was inherited in the nature of settlement, which was itself an inheritance from the Roman Republic. Troops quartered in the provinces were lodged by the inhabitants, who gave up to their guests, between quotes, a certain proportion, usually 1/3 of their estates. Under this system of hospitium, bands of foederati, allies in theory, were found in almost every province during the 4th century, and the Goths and Vandals were probably regarded, at first, by the Romans of Italy, Gaul, and Spain as a similar but temporary nuisance. Thus the population was sharply divided. On one side, the civil inhabitants, carrying on the administration, agriculture, and trade. On the other, the soldiers, barbarian heretics for the most part, subject to their own laws and customs, having no abiding city and owing no loyalty save to their leaders. Monarchy was universal, but it was not the Roman type, evolved from the republican fiction of Augustus. The German king or chief had been elected of old by the assembly of freemen, who raised him on a shield, thus acclaiming him their leader. A king of strong character, sprung from a famous family such as the Amal, Balthid, or Meroving, could browbeat the circle of stubborn warriors, and with successful warfare or invasion, his power increased. When Alaric, Gaiseric, and Theoderic led bands of mixed races into Roman territory, their rule ceased to be national and became a personal lordship, resting on a military basis. The assembly disappeared. The racial aristocracy of lesser chiefs gave way to a new nobility of service, gathered round the king's person as a seneschal, marshal, constable, or ruling the districts of his realm as counts, holding both civil and military authority. This primitive system was very different from the Roman hierarchy of officials. Any Frankish courtier, for instance, could be called upon to undertake special missions. The Roman financial system survived in part, even in the Vandal kingdom. Indirect taxes remained: tolls on bridges and ferries, harbor dues, and the like. Harbor dues? Tariffs! Hashtag tariffs? Can I get a hashtag tariff in the chat? Romans were based in tariff pilled, as the youngins would say. And the Roman indirect taxes remained, and the Roman population continued to pay income tax as long as the registers were kept. They are also income tax pilled, but not in a good way. Why have tariffs? Why have income tax when you have tariffs? Makes no sense. But the Germans did not understand direct taxation. It was not justified by their political system, as we see from the Franks. The king was absolute, the realm was his private property, inheritable by his heirs. Its revenue went to his hoard. He owed no duties to his subjects. There were no public services to be paid for. Viewed in this light, taxation was simply impious exaction, carried out usually by armed forces. When the king had an access of piety... What? Excess? Is that what he's trying to say? When the king had an access of piety or a dangerous illness... Yeah, he's trying to... Excess. When the king had an excess of piety or a dangerous illness, the bishops would beseech him to save his soul by burning the accounts. Another legacy of the old system of hospitium was that Germans and Romans continued to be subjects to their own law. The inconvenience was, however, lessened by a certain degree of compromise. In the more Romanized kingdoms of Visigoths and Burgundians, the Teutonic law code had borrowed much from the Roman legislation. In the Frankish realm, the Salic law, utterly different from the Roman, became general in the districts whose population was predominantly Teuton. Although Henri Pirenne would argue that the Salic law isn't nearly as important or as prevalent in history as modern historians would have you believe. I have no real opinion on the matter. I don't know enough about the Salic law. But Henri Pirenne talks about this. I think Pierre Riche does as well. But I don't exactly remember what his thoughts on it were. The main principle of German law was the superseding of the old family blood feuds by the establishment of the king's peace. For this purpose, a detailed tariff of compensation fees was laid down. Hashtag tariff. Hashtag tariffs in the chat. Each individual had his weregild, price of a man, varying with his age and status, which was paid to his relatives by the man who killed him. Every finger had its price. Each wound was carefully estimated. The Salic law is especially comprehensive. In thefts of cattle or pigs, the age and condition of the animal, the place and circumstances of the act are all specified. These compositions are distinct from the penalty and serve only to prevent the matter from developing into a feud. The importance... I hope it's not your husband. I hope it's your child. Sorry, I got distracted by someone talking about poopy pants. It happens sometimes, you know? Where you distracted me. Your poopy pants distracted me. The importance of the family as a social unit is shown also in the most famous provision of Salic law, which bars the inheritance of females to an estate. The land is thus divided among the sons, but does not pass out of the family. Paste. The amount of Weregild gives valuable information about the organization of Frank society. The courtier's Weregild, 600 solidi, was 3 times that of the free warrior. That of the free Roman of all classes was half the free Franks, and equaled that of the Frankish laity, a dependent class midway between freeman and slave, corresponding in some ways to the Roman colony, whose Weregild was, however, less than theirs. The more skillful unfree workers, such as goldsmiths, had a higher Weregild than the common laborers. The position of the Roman is significant of his degradation, but he can improve his standing by entering the king's service, as was done by many Gallo-Roman nobles. All right. Carolingian architecture. Can't really see it all that well. Merovingian sculpture. Interesting stuff. Let's see, France under Clovis. How much more we got left in this chapter? Ooh, it's a long chapter. Triumph of Justinian. Nice. 78. We're at about page 60, 67. AO. Page 67. Whatever that means. As the kids would say. Kids, if there were some teenagers in chat, they'd be going crazy at page 67, right? Yeah, we're it's Friday. We're not gonna I said we're gonna keep it a little shorter. Gonna keep it a little shorter today. So we'll stop here. Stop here for now. I think I like the Friday streams. Friday streams are nice. Got to figure out how to an emoji for that. An emoji combination. Are you kidding? Hold on. They have a pirate flag in here, but not a Bulgarian flag? They got some weird emojis in here, but no Bulgarian flag. That is a tragedy. Although Albania is better. The Albanian flag is awesome. I love the Albanian flag. Yeah, this is such a good looking flag. Like that's just. No, hold on. Yeah. It's a good flag. Bulgaria's Bulgarian flag is all right. It's just it's one of these color flags. It's a tricolor. I hate tricolors. I hate tricolor flags that are just, oh, we have some stripes. Nah, you need some sauce. You need some sauce in your flag. Albania flag. The Albanian flag is goated. Who has Hungary? I think has a good flag. Now Hungary's. I'm thinking of the old Hungarian flag. It's also a tricolor. What is it with tricolors? France has a tricolor flag. France was like the first tricolor flag. Italy. It's like, oh yeah, we throw 3 colors on a flag, but we rotate them sometimes. Like Italy is the same colors, but it's vertical instead of horizontal. Big whoop. Like, flags used to have sauce. What? It's like an old Albanian with see. Italian monarchy flag. That's what I need to. Like even this one, even this flag is better. The Kingdom of Italy. This is like their World War I flag. Even this is better than just 3 stripes. Like throw something in there. The crown is cool. It's the Austria-Hungarian flag. The Austria-Hungarian flag I think was pretty cool. I'm so bad at spelling. Like yeah, that's some sauce. It's not great, but what on earth? As if Austria-Hungary hasn't been through enough. Really? You're really the Austria-Hungarians haven't been through enough. You have to make this. Ugh. Ah. Oh, this flag. This is the flag I was thinking of. Like, look at that. Like, that is such a fantastic flag. You have all of the kingdoms that make up Austria-Hungary. Man, this... Oh, I'd forgotten about this flag. This is such a good flag. Honestly, all... Hey, scroll past that one real quick. Don't be mad at me, YouTube. I didn't pull it up on purpose. What is this? Oh, these are the personal standards. Like, look at this. Look at that. Crown of Saint Stephen. Pretty sure that's supposed to be Attila's sword. But I don't know, or probably not. But ah, man, flags used to be cool, and now they're just this. Like, yeah. The old Spanish flags are really good. That old Spanish. What am I doing? Even the modern Spanish flag is good. I'm gonna die. Even the Spanish flag is just better. Because it has something on it. It's not just colors. Like it has something to it. The old Spanish flags are awesome. Alright, let's... Cross of Burgundy. I don't know. It might not have been Spain I was thinking of. French flags are always good. Italy has some good ones. But yeah, no, We just need some good flags again. Oh, the greatest flag ever made. And I don't just say this because you'll understand. It is just a really good flag. America. It's such a good flag. And I don't say that just because I'm American. It's such a good looking flag. Red, white, and blue. The stripes, it's not just three colors. There's something to it. It has meaning. Your 13 colonies, your 50 states. The colors are perfect. It is, and again, I don't say this just because I'm American. It is my favorite flag. It's such a good looking flag. I'm proud to be an American, where at least I can be free. Or something like that. At least I know I'm free. I apologize. Anyway, that's it for me. I hope you all have a very good night and all of that. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave a comment. Tell me what you think. You got questions or disagreements? You wanna call me a mean things? Whatever. Do whatever you want, man. Do whatever. But yeah, no. If y'all got any questions or comments, let me know. Well, discussions are good. I love having discussions with people. If y'all disagree, even better. But you all have a good night. And I will see you all on Wednesday.